All right, I'm back. This is Al's Hobbies. We're going to cover some tips and tricks for assembling your SRX Gen 3. These are some things I came across. You might not have come across, but I came across. This should be applicable to both kits, the regular Gen 3 as well as the carpet kit. So first off, it's right at the beginning of the build. It's when you're assembling the steering rack. So it says use thread locker. So I would say there's another step to that. On my kit, these two nuts that hold and center the bearings, they had a lot of thread oil on them from when they were machined. And even though I used thread locker, I still had them back off. I think after your second or third battery pack, I went, did a normal nut and bolt check, made sure everything was tight, and I found that the rack had loosened up. These were starting to back out, as well as these are starting to back out. So I went back, took the screws out, threw them on the 2mm in the drill, used some brake spray, clean off of the oil. Same thing with here, sprayed them in there, and then reapplied thread locker, and they haven't backed out yet. But even with my initial thread locker, the machine oil that was present on the threads and on here out of the kit, which should have thought of ahead of time. I built enough kits, but they did back out. And the same thing applies when you're building the shocks. On the threaded section for the nut, I don't think there was shock oil on that or machine oil on the nut, but there was on here when they cut the threads in the shock shaft. Same thing, clean it. Use some shock pliers, hold on to this guy, some thread locker when you assemble it, and then before you assemble it, clean it off with some brake spray, clean those threads off. Use a nut. I have a T-wrench that happens to have I think a 2.5 or 3 mil on there to tighten that. Be careful, it's easy to strip, and I don't know anywhere where you can get these M2 nuts other than an RC place, so be very careful when you're doing that. Don't over tighten it, but don't be shy on it either. You can kind of feel when it's going to give, so stop well before that. And the nut should be flush with the top of it when it's all properly tightened down. So those are two that are real critical when you're building this. The next thing is the ball studs. All the ball studs and ball cups, wherever you're going to install them, wherever they interact, go ahead and put grease on it before you assemble it, just to help out with the lubrication and take out and assist with some of that bind from the initial kit build. I think after about 4 or 5 battery packs, it loosened up where they weren't really binding anymore. When I first built the kit with no shocks on there, I could move the arm up and it just stayed up. There was that much bind in there. But after greasing them, running them, getting some, just in general, getting the kit built and worn in and driven, it loosened them all up. And definitely throw some grease on those. Use a black grease or a thicker grease so that it stays on there. If you use the diff grease, the clear stuff, it'll probably all run off and then come down all on the arms. The next thing is Rude Bits. They're from the UK, or actually I bought their products from Serpent UK. This is the shock tower protector for the gull-wing arm and the shock tower protector for the straight arm shock tower. I use them. They help out infinitely. At our track, one of the track rules that you need to have a shock tower protector. It was really difficult to find them that were good quality for the Gen 2 or mid-hybrid buggy, but for the Gen 3, these Rude Bits parts are excellent. I should have bought them sooner. There is a way, if you're buying them and shipping them here in the United States, it takes a couple weeks, but they fit perfect. They include longer screws because you have an increased thickness that they're going to thread through. See if I can kind of show that. So it covers the back, screw runs through the back, goes through the front, so you don't need to change the standoff or anything like that. And they're black. I think they're painted after they're printed, but they're good quality. Again, our track requires having a shock tower cover so you don't eat up the carpet. You land upside down, it's easy for these to grab the carpet, rip the carpet, and then you mess up the surface for the on-road guys, or you're out there repairing it and having to do patches. So it adds a lot to the CG, it raises it too high and blah, 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 blah. Just do it. Just put them on there, protect them. Even if you're running on dirt, it'll probably help. you know, save you from messing up your shock caps. I think they're a clean look. The black is definitely nice. So that's another upgrade or build thing that you should do. Coming to the back, if you're running the hard arms, actually any newer style arms with the thicker, solid, better plastic, it's easy to strip out the threads in the screw that you're going to use. So what I do is I have an M3, about an 18 or 20 mil grub screw or set screw. I run that in there where I think I'm going to run my shocks most of the time, which is in the middle. And then I use a M3 nut, flange nut, and that holds that on there a little bit better than just using an M3 screw to hold it in there. It's a lot easier to pull this off using, you know, your 5 mil tool, and it's very simple. It looks a little bit cleaner, holds on there a little bit tighter, allows you an opportunity to run some bling on there. There's a couple things on A main, I can't remember the company, but really all you need is an M3 screw or set screw, and then an M3 nut. And of course you can get them green, purple, blue, whatever your color is. Orange, I like the orange. So the wing buttons as well as these nuts. That's another improvement. If you're gonna run stock, there's a couple parts that you should get. First is the spur gear adapter, and then the top shaft, so the aluminum. I have them, I haven't run them yet, but so that's the top shaft. This is how it's assembled in the buggy. So this will be in the transmission case. This piece is what's included. So the 500/788 is this part right here, but you do need the front. So I don't know why they didn't include the front. This is off the earlier version of the spur gear adapter. I don't know if they maybe just, rather than having a 2-piece from the old version, they just made the 1-piece. So M4 nut, you should have some. It's the same as a wheel nut, nothing fancy. This part that holds it on there, and then the spur gear. So you can get all the low friction stuff. If you're gonna run fixed, you know, no slipper, this is how you're gonna run it. I like it better than the other solutions. I think Exotech's got some stuff, but just get the 788, 789. Find this, I don't know where. I had it on my previous buggy, that's just why I have it, because I ran stock. It's the same part. I'm suspecting the old version might be both parts that you need, because you do need both parts. Otherwise, all you have is that back part, and it doesn't work on the front. So you could, I imagine you could run that and then use the slipper stuff, but what's the point of all that mass that you have on here? This is actually a slipper setup out of the mid-hybrid, to show you how, you know, the difference in them. So the stock one's aluminum, this one's a steel with a bolt that goes through it, and, you know, the spring to adjust all the adjustment. I would not run the spur gear adapter and all this top shaft stuff, because you're just adding all that weight. So if you can source the old version of the adapter for the mid-hybrid, I would get that and run that, and that should be fine. You'll still need the top shaft, but then you can run that if you're running stock. They're better solutions, they stay tighter. The aluminum one, again, it's the gear thickness is less, so there's less friction on it. This is from a mid-hybrid, it's not the top shaft from the Gen 3, but again, it's a narrower, less friction, it's aluminum, less rotating mass, easier to accelerate. So if you're gonna run 21 turn or 17.5, definitely run all the low friction stuff. It makes it a lot easier, a lot simpler. Fewer moving parts, kind of cleans it up back here. I kind of like to be gentle on my kits and run slippers on the high traction, just because that's a lot of drivetrain shock to introduce constantly on throttle and on braking. So for my purposes, I like running slippers, just parts longevity. So if you have any more questions about setup stuff, or I should say build stuff, let me know. I'll do a setup video. This is going to be just a single video, setup video or a build video. I'll cover my build, what parts I'm running, how I'm running them, my specific setup stuff. I'll print out a sheet and then go over it so you can see exactly what I'm running. Again, this is a build tips and tricks for the SRX Gen 3.